Hello, fellow Rotarians. I'm Cedric Hill, and it's my distinct honor to serve as your club's president for the Rotary year 2022-2023. As we move into the next year with the challenges our world faces, I'd like to call us to be a club of even more action, impacting our community, nation, and world with the same fierceness and intention Rotary has always exhibited. Thank you for your service to Rotary. This is our home club. To the community and world that we face, let's together imagine Rotary. Good afternoon. Welcome to our November 9th Rotary Club of Columbus meeting. We call the meeting to order. I would just ask that you would join me now in the Pledge of Allegiance to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this point, I'd like to call on Wayne Anthony if he would bring his invocation according to his faith tradition. Wayne, if you will.
Thank you, Cedric. Let us pray. Oh God, first we acknowledge that you are the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the power of all powers. And acknowledging that, we first want to thank you for the privilege of living in this country and the honor and privilege of voting. Thank you for your power and presence over a massive process. But we want to pray especially for those that were elected. We pray that you will give them a humble heart and a giving spirit and a loving service. And then to those who were defeated, a special prayer that you will heal the brokenness, the hurt, the disappointment that they and their families are experiencing this hour. Bring healing to our land. May Rotary be a blessing to those that are in it, but more importantly, a blessing to those that are around it. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Remember the cans, all we can do.
Thank you. I'd like to call on Ron Williams. Ron will bring us our news for today. Ron, if you would come.
Good afternoon. Here's a look at your headlines. Midterm elections. Incumbent Governor Brian Kemp wins re-election, fending off a challenge from Stacey Abrams. Earlier this morning, when I checked the stats, the Georgia Senate race was still undecided, and it may go to a runoff on December 6th. In other election news, Wes Moore claims victory, and he will become the first black governor of the state of Maryland, and only the third black person to become governor of any state in this country, following Douglas Wilder, who was governor of Virginia, and Deval Patrick, who was governor of Massachusetts. In local news, Columbus State University's women's soccer team grabbing #1 seed for the NCAA Division II Southeastern Region. We will host the regionals beginning at 3 p.m. on Friday, November 11th at the Walden Soccer Complex on the main campus. Our team will play North Georgia. Dow Jones was down 33 points. Your weather forecast, sunny, high of 72 and a low of 54. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Ron. Call on past President Lori Alton if you would give us, introduce our visitors and guests for the day.
Wonderful. Thank you, President Cedric. Fellow Rotarians, we have several visitors and guests today. First of all, I'd like to welcome back our past Assistant District Governor, Tracy Van Norman. Tracy, where are you? Always a pleasure to see you. And our own Rotarians with visitors today is Rotarian Rob Chapa, brought with him Caitlin McLemore. And you guys, if you would just stand up so we could recognize you. Caitlin is the awards director at the National Infantry Association. So welcome to you. Julio Portillo brought with him Allison Slocum. Allison is the historic preservation planner with the River Valley Regional Center and part of the team that's going to bring us our program today. And Rotarian Norm Easterbrook brought with him a new team member, Stefan Hagedorn. Stefan is the new Director of Finance and Administration for the River Center, and he joins us new to Columbus from South Florida. Last but certainly not least, Kent Ilgis brought with him Leanne DeCesaris. Leanne, I said I was going to get that right. She is the Director of Marketing for Coldwell Banker. So it's a warm welcome to all of our visitors and guests. Thank you.
Let's give them a hand. Just a couple of announcements. Our annual meeting will be held on December the 7th, and on November the 30th, we will vote on 3 directors. The names will be brought to us by a nominating committee, which is past President Greg Camp, past President Betsy Covington, and past President Ryan Clemens. So please go to them with your proposals for 3 new directors that will be beginning to serve their term July the 1st of 2023. You will have from now until November the 30th them. Each week we recognize a soldier in commemoration of our member and great decorated soldier, Colonel Ralph Puckett Jr. So at this point, I'd like to call on Pete Jones if he would come and recognize our Ralph Puckett Jr. Soldier of the Week.
Thank you, President Hill. Fellow Rotarians, on the eve of Veterans Day, it's great to introduce, come on up here, fellow infantryman, Staff Sergeant Daniel Adorno. He was born in the Bronx, New York, so he had either choices of being a Jets or a Giants fan. So in a divided house, he went with the Giants. He joined the Army in March of 2007, came here to Fort Benning, Georgia for 1 station unit training, and then obviously earned his blue cord. He is currently serving as the course director and the senior instructor at the Western Hemisphere Institute for Security Cooperation, also known as WINSEC, in what's their non-commissioned officer academy. Following graduating from Sand Hill, he was stationed with the 101st and deployed to Afghanistan. He's also served here on Kelly Hill with 3rd Brigade 3ID, Sledgehammers, and then did a 1-year unaccompanied tour to Korea before coming back and then serving on 198th before he went to WINSEC. He's gone through numerous courses to include the Advanced Leaders course, the Air Assault School, the Bradley Crew Evaluations course, and the Combat Lifesaver, and numerous decorations to include 7 awards of the Army Achievement Medal, the Army Commendation Medal, and the Good Conduct Medal, along with those for service. He is a proud wearer of the Combat Infantryman's Badge for service in Afghanistan. But more importantly, I think you'd like to say that he's a proud husband and father to his wife, Jennifer, and has an 18-year-old daughter, Caitlin, who's a senior at Northside, and a 15-year-old son, Daniel, at Jordan, which is kind of great because the individual who sponsored the copy of the book that we're getting ready to give you is on behalf of Judy Thomas, who loves Jordan High School, is the one that sponsored this book, and it's signed by Ralph Puckett as the Ralph Puckett Soldier. We'd also like to give you a challenge coin. You know what to do with those, so please add those to your pile. And a certificate, and more importantly, passports to the arts, and so that you and Jennifer can go to the River Center, the Columbus Symphony Orchestra. Please come visit the National Infantry Museum, because we have a new simulator that you can bring your son to, Columbus State University, and the Springer. So on behalf of my fellow Rotarians, one, thank you for your service. And please take that back to all the soldiers, not only at Fort Benning, but also the over 30 nations that are represented at WINSEC.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to say thank you. I'm really appreciative for all the gifts and the recognition. Columbus is, like I was explaining to General, Columbus has been all the kids is known home, like what they know as home. I've been 15, almost coming up on 16 years, and we've been here in Columbus for the last 11 years, not consecutively, but 11 years total. My daughter's done elementary, middle, and high school. She's about to graduate and go to CSU. My son, too, he's done all 3 schools here. So Columbus will forever, we're New Yorkers, but Columbus will always have a special place in our heart, and we're just really appreciative of all you guys do for the community, and thank you so much.
Staff Sergeant Moderno. On behalf of the 280 members of our club, we certainly welcome you for being with us today, and we would ask that you would take back to your fellow soldiers on Fort Benning how much we appreciate what you all do for our nation and our country, and we invite you to come back and join with us sometime. Let's give him another hand for being with us today. At this point, I'd like to call on President-elect Tom Weinick, if he would come, because it's always a great day when we have a new member join our club.
Well, Major General Patrick Donahoe does not need an introduction to our club because he's been an honorary member up until right now, when we're going to make him an actual working member and paying member of the Rotary Club. I have had the privilege in my career in serving underneath Major General Donahoe, Pat, and he didn't throw me out of his office too often, so I appreciated that. And now I just see him as a good friend and appreciate all you did for me, and welcome to the club.
Hey, thanks, Tom. I don't remember you ever underneath me, but I do remember you coming in and praying over me when I was having fits of doubt many times. Hey, it is really wonderful for my family and I to transition out of Fort Benning and stay here in the Columbus area, right? You know, Sergeant Darrow said, "Hey, he's a New Yorker. I'm from New Jersey, but hey, I'm a Georgian now, right?" So this is a great place. So really appreciate the hospitality and the warm welcome. Thanks,
Pat. Pat, all due respect, we welcome you as being an active member of our club, and again, we look forward to working with you as we move forward into our upcoming year. At this point, I'd like to call on Gene and Haley, if you're here, to give us a Rotary football report. Or Gene.
Well, as everybody knows, this season is really moving on. With about 3 games left, we're sitting here nationally with Alabama down to number 10, UCLA at number 9, USC at 8, LSU at 7, Oregon at number 6, Tennessee is at 5, TCU at 4, Michigan at 3, Ohio State 2, and Georgia in number 1 for the year. So that's where we are. As far as our Rotary football goes, we've got South Carolina in 6th place with 311. Hampton-Sydney at 313 at number 5. Mercer with 363 is at number 4. Alabama is at 376. Georgia at 391. And in first place is Tennessee with $408. So the total to date for the Rotary Foundation is $13,760. Wow. So we're getting right along. A couple other things. First of all, let me give the prize. We've got the door prize today for Rotarian Mac Plummer. Mac, are you here? It's a toy microphone. I figured you'd like that. That's our door prize this week. As far as games this week, we've got some good ones with LSU playing Arkansas. We got Missouri at number 5, Tennessee. And the big game that's going to be very interesting will be Alabama playing Ole Miss. Now, this is number 10 Alabama and number 11 Ole Miss. Be the real hot SEC showdown in Oxford. Game will be at 3:30 on CBS. And this really shows to put it all together in the SEC. Lane Kiffin, the coach of Ole Miss, as you know, was at Alabama with Nick Saban for a long time. So a lot of rivalry, a lot of everything going on. And I think Alabama's really got a lot to prove. They want to get back on their game. So they had a couple losses here, and they're really trying to get it back. So don't forget, that's our game of the week this week, and I think the line is 11 points. So go make you a little money on that too. So all right, thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Just a few other announcements. We're having a special homecoming holiday social on December the 14th. Please invite members you haven't seen for a while, and also that we will have, that we would like to reconnect with. I'm sorry. We will have the MECO band providing a jazz ensemble for us, and we will have our Christmas buffet as in previous years. Please notify the office if you and your visitor of you coming and bringing visitors with you, so we will have some sense of account. Sign-ups are in the back. Also, the Spring Harbor Social will be December the 1st, and bell ringing on December the 8th. Directories are in the back. Most of you probably picked those up when you came in. If you did not, directories are in the back. And at this point, I'd like to introduce our head table. Just like to thank Wayne for bringing us invocation. And at this point, I'd like to ask Amy Bryan if she would come and introduce today's program. Amy, if you would come.
Thank you, President Cedric. Jim Livingston is the Executive Director of the River Valley Regional Commission, where he's responsible for organization and operation of the agency. They work with 16 counties in the West Central Georgia area. Through his position, Jim helps address community infrastructure and economic development issues in the region. His expertise with real estate, planning, and development provide a platform to find pragmatic solutions to meet a community where they are and address and create jobs, build wealth, and improve the quality of life in the region. Jim's a graduate of Davidson College, and he has a degree in history. He's also a graduate of the University of Florida with a master's in political science and a certificate in public affairs. He's an Eagle Scout, and he's also served as Scoutmaster for his son's troop. I've been very fortunate in my past capacity at the Chamber to work with the River Valley Regional Commission. They do a lot of important work in our region that a lot of times flies under the radar. In my new position at Direct Services, we're a provider for the Area Agency on Aging, which a lot of people don't realize is a part of the River Valley Regional Commission. This is a mouthful. But Jim and his team, they're phenomenal. They care so much about the communities that they serve. And I'm so excited that you all get to hear more about the work that the River Valley Regional Commission is doing in our 16-county region. Jim?
Thank you, Amy. So, Mr. Hill talked about wanting to expose some of the good things that happen in Columbus and in the region and identified us. And, thank you, but that's kind of how we work. We are behind the scenes of a lot of what goes on in the local government, 16 counties, that's 51 local governments that we serve, including the city of Columbus. We are behind the scenes and trying to help and address different issues of infrastructure that is human capital or physical infrastructure in all of these communities. I want to Mr. Anthony. Wayne Anthony was the chair of the Lower Chattahoochee Regional Development Center before we merged with Middle Flint back in '09. Mr. Anthony has brought with him his card from the RVRC, which I didn't bring my card from the RVRC. So, Mr. Anthony, thank you so much for setting us up for success. I'll go ahead and go for the next slide, please. And again. So, Amy noted that we are 16 counties. Let me give you a different way of measuring that. We are a land mass the size of Delaware. Another way to measure this is we are so large that we have 2 types of barbecue in this region. I have learned to appreciate the mustard-based chopped barbecue we have over here in Columbus, but when I go over to Vienna along I-75 and the land of Myron Mixon, I go back to my roots in eastern North Carolina and appreciate that vinegar-based sauce there. We were set up back in the 1960s. We've been around that long. We are the federally designated economic development district. That's why we exist. There are organizations like ours all across the country. And we've always operated in a largely the same way. Some of you probably from the 1990s remember the BASF commercial. We don't make the things that you know, we make the things that you know better. That's a lot of what we do. We are behind the scenes trying to make improvements in this region. Now, this region is very rural, with the exception of Columbus, and very poor, with the exception of Columbus in parts. That creates some unique challenges and some unique needs of this region that we've been working for a long time to try to address. Next slide, please. We are one of 12 regional commissions in the state of Georgia. There are, go ahead and go back one to the about. Thank you. All the country has organizations like ours. We do the similar types of work, but we are run locally. That means our local policy officials, we are made up of, our boards are locally elected officials. Our chairman right now is Pops Barnes. Our vice chair is from Taylor County. Our secretary is from Georgetown, Quitman County. These elected officials make up our board, and we do what that group, as a policy group, helps decide. Now, that does mean that all of us do something slightly differently. We're the same flavor, but slightly different variations on that. We do, some of you have probably heard of the Atlanta Regional Commission. We do what they do. We do much smaller, we're a much smaller area, but a larger part of what they do is that. One of the things that we are, and we all are, whether we are in Georgia, our Council of Governments, our partners across the river, we all manage federal funds. That's part of our core of who we are and what we do. We are effective and efficient managers of federal money. We are audited annually, and that is an incredibly important part of what we do as an organization to make sure that we are good stewards of the public dollar that's entrusted to us. Next slide, please. We have three main lines of business. We are a workforce development board for our 8 eastern counties. I'll go into that in a minute. We work through planning and government services. That's what a lot of this region recognizes us for. And we are also the Area Agency on Aging. I've brought Katie Howard, who is our AAA director, to here, and I'll get you in a second, Katie. But I've brought her here to explain a little bit more of what the AAA does. And then hopefully after this, we'll have time to be able to answer some questions for y'all. So our numbers here. These are our 2020, fiscal year 2022 numbers. $33 million in overall impact. That is a little bit of a higher number than it has been, and that's due to some ARPA funding and CDBG successes in the past year I'll go into in a minute. One of the lines that we always pay attention to, what is our return on investment? Our local governments are dues-paying members to what we do. What we use that money for, and this is a critical part of all of our operations. Federal money requires local match. Local dues serve as that local match for us to allow us to do the work that we do, whether it was with the AAA and the Meals on Wheels program that Amy administers, or any of our planning grant, any of our transportation work, or any of our workforce work. That's a critical part of what we do. Next slide, please. The Workforce Development Board, we serve as the fiscal agent for the Workforce Development Board for the 8 eastern counties in our region. The Lower Chattahoochee Workforce Board is administered out of the city of Columbus. They do the same thing with some nuances as we do. Both boards work on training. Both work towards trying to make sure that citizens in our region as a whole get the education, skills training that they need. Next slide, please. So one of the things that we are known for outside of Columbus, maybe more than in Columbus, is our work on planning and government services. We have 51 local governments in this region. None of them have the capacity of the city of Columbus. And that's important to remember because as a region, as a large region, they all have needs and they all have different things that they're required to do by the state or they want to do for their citizens. I mentioned that a lot of the region is very poor. Very literally, we have counties in this region are trying to make a determination of funding. Do they fund their ambulance service or do they fund their water system? That's the sort of decisions that elected officials are having to make in this region. What we do is try to help them mitigate those issues as much as we humanly can. We write comprehensive and pre-disaster mitigation plans. We're zoning staff. Allison serves as zoning staff for 6 of our local governments. We have a bike and pedestrian program that we work with Bicycle Columbus and Sumter Cycling for helmet giveaways, rides, safe routes to school. We do stream testing, make sure that the water coming into the stream and the stream quality is strong and good. We do that all over this north of Columbus and south of Columbus. We do that with Georgia Georgia EPD, Environmental Protection Division. We serve as staff for the City of Columbus for Historic Preservation. Is it committee or council, Allison? Commission, none of the C's. So we did 54 different assessments and write-ups for that board. We have a couple of other things that we've done in the last couple of years here I want to sort of highlight here that would have impact here in Columbus. We wrote a USDA grant a couple of years ago to do a market study to just see what it would take to get a cold storage facility located here in Columbus. University of Georgia wrote that report to us, and we put that together and realized, ooh, that's going to take a lot. And so it kept us from going down that path, but we handed that information off to a nonprofit here in town, UGRO, and that evolves into the work that the food mill is doing right now on 2nd Avenue. That's an example of the work we're doing behind the scenes. We're not in front. It's the food mill. It's Olivia Amos. It's those folks that are doing all the work. What can we do to help you and help support you? Another project that I want to highlight that is ongoing right now is some work we're doing with the Department of Defense, south of Fort Benning, south of the Post. We're looking at what's going on in the counties south of Fort Benning. Mentioned that these counties are very poor, very rural, with lots of challenges. And as they're trying to figure out what is impacting their economic development opportunities, what can we do to help facilitate that so if they're making decisions, it won't negatively impact the Post? We're working with our counterpart on the other side of the river, the Lee Russell Council of Governments on this, and we're working with the University of Georgia on this. One of the projects we are also working on is a transit program. We do a rural transit. Some of you may have seen Batala transit buses that run through town, especially south of here. That is a part of a regional transit authority. We recently expanded that regional transit authority into Harris County and Chattahoochee County. So now for the first time, residents in Harris County can take these transit services to the senior center, to dialysis. It's so successful, we're beginning to have some capacity issues. A good problem to have and a different problem than having no transit service at all. We do have a revolving loan fund program. In the past year, we had 5 loans that we were able to put together that created 34 jobs in this region. We step in behind banks and behind other capital institutions to help facilitate what they do and make it easier for them to make good loan decisions, sound loan decisions, and that we can come in and help support that. One of the things that I really want to make sure folks know and understand the importance of, for us as an organization, but for the rest of the region, is the work we do on writing grants and administering grants. There are a couple of programs right now that have been really impactful. One is the American Recovery Plan. That is funding that's come from Washington, D.C., and it's floating through in a number of different forms, in a number of different ways, coming to the city for them to do a lot of work. It's also coming through the governor's office. We've been successful in writing several ARPA grants to the governor's office to make generational impacts on water and sewer infrastructure in several places in this region. $21 million in grant funding for water and sewer projects through the Community Development Block Grant state program, The city has its own set aside for CBG. We don't look and touch at that, but through the state program. The other program that I want to make sure you guys are sort of, again, behind the scenes on is helping Feeding the Valley with their expansion. There's a better than $2 million expansion at Feeding the Valley through a state community development block grant program that we're administering with the city. Again, what we are here for is the effective and efficient administration of federal dollars. It is important to make sure that these are our dollars that are going to Washington, D.C. Our job is to stand up and say, let's try to get these resources back into this region that desperately needs it. Last piece I'm going to cover on our planning and government services is on rural broadband. You all have heard this through the state and a lot of different components of identifying, especially post-pandemic, how important broadband is. We have been working on this since 2014. We wrote a digital economy plan for this region. We did a number of surveys, 3 surveys, and we had them analyzed by Georgia Tech. That process set us in a really good position to be aggressive and effective in securing funds when they became available for this region. And in this past round through ARPA funding, this region received $82 million in broadband funding. There's other funding coming from USDA. There's other funding coming from FCC. We made a decision as an agency not to go after those funds, but to rather to help other communities, other entities be successful in that work. And that's one of those things we did not do something that was very effective. Next slide, please. In May, this region worked together and passed the second TIA-funded set of projects. TIA is the law, Transportation Investment Act is the law, T-SPLOST is the tax. They were using them somewhat interchangeably, but TIA is the law. So we have, when we passed the TIA 2 in May of this past year, one of the things that was in there was $159 million from the state of Georgia through the Georgia Department of Transportation to help support the projects that we identified collectively as a region. There are 3 things that happened to pull these projects together. One is all projects the City of Columbus requested, 70% of the funding were funded. Second was Highway 280, road from Federal Highway from Lake Blackshear to Americus, is going to be completed. The third is all 16 counties will have at least one project on that identified list. Of those 45 projects, one will happen in every county. This project is going to be administered as the TIA 1 has, through the Citizens Review Panel. It's a citizens panel made up of several folks. Joseph Brannon here in Columbus, Todd Schuster, Kathy Carlisle is in Harris County. They are part of the 5-member Citizens Review Panel to try to make sure that GDOT is doing what they need to be doing to make sure these projects get delivered on time and under budget. I want to mention quickly, because I know this community and probably this room cares about, is I-14. You know, that is a project that is going to be it's going to take a while to pull together. We have a pragmatic problem, and I think a now problem for us in this region. If you try to get from this place to Savannah, Georgia, it's hard to do. We have to figure out a way to get across the Okmulgee Swamp to make sure that we can facilitate our route to I-16 and therefore to Savannah. That's out of our region. That's out of our space. But it is an example of why we need to be working together with our neighbors, east and west, to make sure we work together regionally. Next slide, please. So I talked a little bit about rural broadband, and I talked a little bit about the historic funding opportunities that are there for investment in infrastructure. Many of you recognize Franklin Delano Roosevelt here in Warm Springs and rural electrification. The analogy between rural electrification and rural broadband has been a regular piece. We have a historic opportunity to try to get as many infrastructure dollars into this region as possible. This is not a policy question. Somebody else handles that. Our role here is to be as aggressive, to do what we can to support getting those infrastructure dollars here. I'm going to introduce Katie Howard now. Katie is our AAA director. She works directly with Amy on a lot of different things. She's got some great programs through our AAA that we work on. And Katie, after that, we'll open up and try to answer some questions.
Okay, so Jim told me to stop talking at 12:45, so bye. If you'll go to the next slide. One of the things that I think people don't know enough about us is that we have a database of over 3,000 resources for persons over age 60 and persons with disability. So please call that number, and by the way, you don't have to write it down. We have presents in the back. Please stop by and get those on your way out that have the phone number on it. We have trained counselors that can help caregivers and seniors figure out which service they need, what's the best for them, because one size definitely doesn't fit all. Next slide. These are the services that we provide. I'm going to go through these like a machine gun, and if you've got questions, let me know. In-home services, we do services in the home. Senior centers, these are, in Columbus, it gets a little confusing because Parks and Recreation does a great job with their senior centers, but we also have ones that we run. Direct Services and Amy run the one in Columbus. It's in South Columbus, and it's called the Muskogee County Senior Center. It used to be known as E.J. Night Garden Senior Center, but we have 11 others in the region. We have Meals on Wheels in every county, and that is a very valuable service because, as Amy will be the first to tell you, sometimes these are the only people that senior sees every day. They're by themselves, so it's really important to have that touch point. And if we had time, I would tell you stories that would make you cry about how lives have been saved by the volunteers that are delivering meals. Nursing home transitions. Sometimes people can go home from the nursing home with a little bit of help, and we're there to provide a little bit of help. But I do want to say that there is definitely, absolutely a place in the continuum of care for nursing homes and other long-term care facilities. If you need 24/7 care, either you need to have the money to be able to pay for 24/7 care in your home, or you need to be in a facility. But if a little bit of help will work to keep you at home, we may be able to help. These are Medicaid-funded programs, so that means they're income eligible. We have legal services through Georgia Legal Services, and we can provide help with wills, durable power of attorney, landlord issues, things like that. They do not help with divorces. Sorry, guys. But they help with a lot of different things and with information. But we also have case management. That is short-term case management, and I have really drunk the Kool-Aid on this one. It's about empowering people, not enabling them. The client determines what their needs are, and we work with them to determine how they can achieve their goals. And then finally, we have wellness programs that are designed and proven to work to help you improve your health. We have Matter of Balance for those of us like me who have fallen down more than once and really don't want to do it again. We have diabetes self-management, chronic disease self-management, Tai Chi, which is good for memory, for arthritis, and for balance. And then we also have powerful tools for caregivers, because I'm betting everybody in here has been a caregiver at one time, whether it was for your children, your parents, sibling, cousin, and if you don't take care of yourself, there will be two patients, not one. So those are the services we provide, and then just very briefly, we are really big into partnerships. I think we're a little bit further than that. We are partnering currently with the Central Georgia Public Health on 3 different programs. One of them will buy a vaccine mobile unit, and we're really excited about that. We just had a meeting on it yesterday. We've got another one that is expanding the public health workforce. When we get the contract from the state, cross your fingers, then that will actually, the health department is doing a research program because diabetes and being overweight is one of the significant risk factors for COVID. They're going to do some research and work with nutritionists and dietitians to give counseling to people to see if we can reduce some of the impact. And then finally, we're helping them to recreate their medical reserve corps, volunteers that support the health department. We're working with Piedmont Hospital on their adult trauma prevention committee on falls prevention. Falls are one of the leading causes of people to go into the emergency room, and also one of the leading calls for ambulance, 911. And then finally, we partner a lot with Family Connections out in our region. Those folks know what's going on in their county, and we work with them on farmers markets, the Senior Hunger Coalition, evidence-based classes. And one final thing I'd like to say is that we are currently looking for a partner, if anybody here wants to help us build ramps. If you can't get in and out of your house, you're trapped, either outside it or inside it. So we are very limited by the federal government into how much money we can put into it. Yes, there's moves afoot to increase that, but right now we need some skilled volunteers, or not even that skilled, but enthusiastic volunteers. We can buy the materials. Yeah, I might be able to have them, or I'm not promising, but I can try. Sort of like what House of Heroes does, only it's building ramps. So if you are interested in that, please see me before we leave, because we are enthusiastically looking for partners. Okay, so I'm not as fast as Jim wanted me to be, but I tried.
Shouldn't have stood up. Thanks, Katie. Thank you all. Mr. Hill?
Certainly you all may have questions. A lot of information. Questions? No questions.
The rural broadband, so timeframe for implementation of that?
The question was regarding rural broadband and time frame. It's going to take some time. This is not going to be turned quickly. There's a number of technical and pragmatic reasons why it's going to take a time. ARPA funds need to be expended by 2026, I believe. So I'd say within the next 4 to 5 years, we will see significant improvements in this region and across the country on rural broadband.
Does rural broadband require hard wiring? This is a dumb question, but is there any way, or will there be any way to do satellites where you won't have to put in infrastructure on the ground?
So even cell service has a fiber backbone going to each cell tower. So yes, to a certain extent, technology is moving ahead, and there will be some different questions and different technologies to be able to solve some of these problems. If y'all drive anywhere in this region, you know how quickly you're going to lose cell coverage. So even that is lost, and there's, all of this is about necessary and smart investment to maximize. Most of this is being figured out by people who know what they're doing, providers who know what they're doing. They know where the holes are. And they're not in the marketplace because there's not the payback necessary. So this funding helps break that cycle. That's the idea here. It's not because the providers don't want to be there. It's because there's not sufficient payback to support that investment.
Others?
Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Hill.
Absolutely. What a massive amount of information, and thank you all for what you all do. It's, again, as we were having a conversation, the things that you do, many people probably don't understand. And again, as we talked, Katie, about best kept secrets in Columbus. As a token of our appreciation for your presentation today, we will put a children's book in the Columbus Library to commemorate your being with us today, with your name inscribed on. Let's give them a hand again for being with us. I'd just like to make sure that we remember that we're looking for new directors coming up in our upcoming year. So again, just to remind you that nominating committee is past President Ryan Clemens, which is over in the back, past President Betsy Covington, and past President Greg Camp. Larry, I think you're here with us today. We want to hear from you. You were excited about what you did this past week. Tell us what you did.
Yeah, I went to Habitat for Humanity with a friend, and I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed, so I really want to go back.
Great. Let's give Larry a hand, too. She's our GRSP student. Staff Sergeant Adorno, we'd just like to again thank you for being here with us today, and we welcome you and thank you again. Please take back to the soldiers on Fort Benning how much we appreciate what you all do for us and for our nation. Reminder, a replay of today's program will be on our Facebook page and on YouTube. Next week's program will be Jennifer St. John with United Way 211. At this point, I'd like to call Wayne Anthony back up, and he will lead us in our four-way test. Wayne, if you would.
Please stand. In all the things that we say and do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? And will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you so much, Wayne.
Thank you. You're dismissed. Church is Sunday at 11 o'clock.
Love it. Nominations.